Hello, this is Bonita DeRosa. You are about to listen to the Willis Hour, a segment on Lone Star Internet Radio, in which various city officials discuss news and information about the city of Willis. We encourage you to join in the conversation by contacting the city of Willis at 936-856-4611. You can also visit our website at www.ci.willis.tx.us for more information. Please enjoy the show.
Good morning and welcome to the November 5th edition of the Willis Hour. This is James Nowak, Chief of Police for the City of Willis, with our monthly reminder that we only have 49 shopping days till Christmas and only 21 days to Turkey Day. Well, turkey and glazed ham and dressing and cranberry sauce and French onion green beans. Oh, I digress. But another important holiday coming up in 6 days is Veterans Day. And we are fortunate to have as our guest this morning, Ashley Taylor. Morning, Ashley.
Morning.
I understand your title is the Veteran Service Liaison.
That's me with Tri-County Behavioral Health Care.
Okay, and you're also the coordinator of the Military Veteran Peer Network, Peer Services.
Yes, which is the premier program in the state of Texas for mental health and veterans.
Okay. Well, we look forward in the next few minutes about exploring that deeply.
Yes.
And we thank you for being here. You're also a veteran with the U.S. Army, correct?
I am. I served active duty for 7 years. My first duty station was in Germany, and I deployed with them in 2004. And then I reenlisted and got transferred to Fort Irwin, which is in California, which is where I'm from. I'm from Southern California. And I was stationed about 2 hours away from my house. And then I deployed with them again in 2008. So I had 2 Iraq deployments, 2.5 years, 2 Christmases. No, 1 Christmas, 2 Thanksgivings overseas.
Away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They do a really good job, though. I was really impressed. They do a really, really good job. Like, command really gets involved with the holidays because they understand how hard it is, especially people with kids and families and all that stuff.
Okay. And your first year of duty was with the 1st Infantry Division?
The Big Red One. I was in a maintenance company. I was a diesel mechanic. And so
you?
I was. I know. I'm just full of surprises.
They're sitting fingernails.
They're clean now. But I'll have to show you some pictures with the grease lodged in all my, because I was in this shop, 3rd shop, they called it. And so I wasn't there was the motor pool section that was like the changing, like a Jiffy Lube type thing. But I was the 3rd shop where the trucks would come through the motor pool, and as they would get diagnosed and say the engine was bad, then they would send it over to our shop. We would just change the engine. So I was just a parts changer, but all major assemblies. So engines, transmissions, transfer cases, axles, and definitely not just me. I was not like top of the line. I definitely always had to have a partner with me. But so I was in a maintenance company, and we were part of the DISCOM, which was Division Support Command, which actually no longer exists in First ID. And now they're not in Germany anymore. Now they're back in Kansas. But it was a lot of fun.
Good times. All right. Oh, yeah, you sound like the lady on My Cousin Benny. Knew all about the vehicles.
It actually worked out because my husband, he which I met in the Army later on, but he likes to work on trucks as a hobby, trucks and vehicles, and so it worked out that I knew that stuff. But I definitely am not like, I can't wait to get in the garage, but I'll do it, and then I know what I'm doing. So
he doesn't feel threatened by you?
Actually, sometimes he does. I've actually taught him a few tricks. He knows a lot more about diagnostics because I'm not where I can like listen to a truck or something that's wrong and be like, oh, I know what's wrong with it. But I know more about like tricks, how to get stuff off, and my hands are smaller, so like to do bell housing bolts and stuff, and so it works.
Awesome. What do you do with Tri-County Behavioral Health Care as the Veteran Services Liaison?
So that is a great question, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But it's mostly what I like to say is I enhance access to services for veterans. It's really difficult to know what's out there for veterans. It's in our culture. Our whole training is, if you need to know something, you're going to be told it. And you're going to be told how to do it, when to do it, what time to do it at, what to wear while you're doing it, and so that's ingrained in our mindset, and so when we get out as civilians, it's such a tough transition for some people because they're used to taking orders or being told what to do. Whereas in the civilian world, you really have to advocate for yourself and do your research. And sometimes that's just not being done. So on the state level, a lot of programs were started, and the program that I run, which is called the Military Veteran Peer Network, which is a mental health program, was created, and it's funded through DSHS, the Department of State Health Services, and it's funded through all the legislative actions that happen. I don't know exactly the numbers of the House bills or the state bills, but whenever, like this past legislative session, and you hear stuff was implemented for programs for veterans, and whenever it talks about a mental health program, that's the program that pays my program.
Okay.
And it's really fun. And how that equates with Tri-County, the contract, when that legislative bill passed, was offered to all the local mental health authorities in the state of Texas. So there's 37 of me in the state, which there's 39 local mental health authorities, but only 37 of them took this contract for that Military Veteran Peer Network. And it's kind of, I always like to say it's twofold, where one of it is we recruit veterans who want to become mentors. So it's that peer aspect that they have succeeded and gone through those difficult transitioning, and then they mentor other veterans who are maybe not in a good place or just that need to know about resources. And then the other thing is we network with all the community service organizations or veteran service organizations in the area, so that when the veterans come to us with a question, we know where to refer them to.
What type of organizations are you talking about?
Anything. Our executive director, Evan, likes to joke that if there's ever anything in the community that ever mentions veterans, I'm like, woohoo, okay, I need to know who they are. Let me introduce myself. And it could be anything from our fellow partners under the Texas Veterans Commission. They have an employment people who help employment advisors who help veterans find jobs. They have education advisors that help veterans access their education benefits. We have housing assistance for veterans who are either homeless or facing homelessness. We network with those typically nonprofits like the Goodwill or Korean Recovery Resources, who actually have funding and get grants from the VA or from the state to provide those resources. But also something that we really like to do is collaboration. So whenever there's the smaller nonprofits, typically veteran service organizations, whether it's a counseling resource or just an awareness group or a social group of veterans getting together, like the American Legion or the VFW or the Marine Corps League or things like that. We like to partner with them so that way we can get everyone together, kind of working together to build that awareness and camaraderie as a whole. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, when did the Military Veteran Peer Network begin?
So from my understanding from our director up in Austin, they started this program in 2009 after the Fort Hood massacre with that major who went off at Fort Hood. And a bunch of people were like, holy cow, what's going on? We need a mental health program. So this was, it was an initiative, and it actually started just as a networking group of veterans that realized this needed to happen. And Congress threw some money at it, and then it has evolved into this program of this actual military veteran peer network. And so it's really fun because the contract is very vague in what the requirements are for us to complete, and it's like that on purpose, so that way what I do here in Montgomery County and Willis is different than what's going on at the Military Veteran Peer Network in Austin, because they've learned since it was created in 2009 that you have to evolve based on the needs of your community. So the contract, I love our contract. It's it's awesome because it enables us to look out in our community. Because even what I'm doing here in Montgomery County is different than what I'm doing in Liberty County, since I'm with Tri-County and I cover these 3 counties. So it's definitely interesting to learn and adapt based on what we've learned from when it started.
Cool. What are the greatest barriers for veterans to receive mental health care, since you brought that up? That's a great question, and we actually show this video in one of our trainings when I mentioned how we recruit veterans to become peer mentors, and we offer a training. We actually certify these mentors, and we show this video that talks about, it breaks veterans up into thirds, where a third are receiving minimal care, a third are receiving no care at all, and then the other third is maybe receiving some sort of care. And I ask the mentors as we're going through that training, what are those barriers? And I get some pretty interesting answers, and typically they all revolve around the veteran, whether it's the stigma that's out there with veterans accessing mental health, or whether it's not knowing the correct resource to go to. I definitely am an advocate for the VA, even though the VA gets a lot of bad press, especially nowadays with all the stuff going on about their wait lines and their backlog of claims. But in my short experience of being in this position for the last year, it's typically really through no fault of the veteran, but through no fault of the VA either, that there's just not that communication of, you don't know who to talk to or to ask the right question, or people think that the VA is the end all answers to everything veteran, and they're not. Sometimes they just don't cover things. So I think that's part of the reasons. What are those barriers? It's just the general not knowing, or also the stigma of thinking, I don't deserve to be treated at the VA, or I'm strong and I don't want to ask for help. Those basic barriers, I think, that apply to all mental health for the general population. I think that's the biggest thing, is the stigma. And I think it applies to everybody. Nobody wants to ask for help,
right,
or anything. Everybody thinks we're rugged individualists and we can do things on our own, and that's what's honored in our country. That's in our culture. Who's your favorite movie star? John Wayne. Okay.
It's definitely interesting, and something I always like to do an analogy that, how you have the angel and the devil that sits on your shoulder kind of whispering in your ear. I always like to say you have your military self and your civilian self, or your human self, whispering in your ear, and your human self is saying, why can't I sleep at night, or why can't I get along with my family? And your military self is like, be quiet.
Yeah. Drive
on, accomplish the mission, and so it's the struggle of your internal, especially with your military training, because you're trained to be strong no matter what, accomplish a mission, so I think that's a difficult thing, which imparts to that stigma.
Okay. Well, let's take a break for a moment, and we'll come back and talk about some of these other concerns.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on irlonestar.com.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids are removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
Lone Star Internet Radio is now bringing you the weekly business hour show each Monday morning at 11 a.m. My name is Rick Schissler, and I will be your host. Each week we will be bringing you local, area, and national business news that you can use. The program will also feature an interview with a local or national business person who will share their own experiences, successes, and failures in operating their businesses. Our show is for anyone who already owns a business, whether they work solo or have employees, and for those who are thinking about starting their own businesses. A bit of information about myself. Again, my name is Rick Schissler, and I am a Silver Fox advisor who has over 40 years' experience as a serial entrepreneur. As a part of our show, I will offer some advice and encouragement on our monthly topic, and I will take your questions by email at rschissler at silverfox.org or call into the station at 936-647-3776. See you on the radio Monday at 11 a.m. for the weekly business hour.
Have a legal question? Are you a resident of Montgomery County? Call 281-645-6344 to talk to a volunteer attorney from the Woodlands Bar Association. We answer the phones on the first Monday of every month at 281-645-6344 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to provide general legal information and information about legal resources to Montgomery County residents.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Welcome back to the Willis Hour with Ashley Taylor. Ashley, what are some of the categories of services that the peer network provides?
You know, I often think I can narrow it down, but we really do so much because we're involved with basically every category, I would say, of veteran, whether it's a super professional veteran or a veteran who is facing homelessness to a veteran that's in jail or in a TDCJ facility. So we really see veterans of all realms, and we break it down with two things. We really provide peer support, which is that mentor training piece that I talked about, whether it's one-on-one or in groups. And then we also do a large part of what we do is resource navigation. And what I mean by that is we'll get a veteran or even from another community service organization that says, I have this veteran who can't pay his rent this month. And then so I meet with them and we talk about, okay, here's some resources for that if they're available. But then I really like to talk about what's the bigger picture here? Is there a reason why you can't pay your rent this month? Because what is it going to look like next month when you can't pay your rent? Is the reason why you can't pay your rent because you don't have a job? And is the reason why you don't have a job because of your mental health struggles? So that's how it really ties back to the mental health piece. But a lot of what we do is really resource navigation. And that's why I like to say that first thing that I mentioned, that we enhance access to services, whether it's whatever service it is. We like to focus on mental health because if that's the core of whatever someone's struggling with, but really it could be housing or even something, parenting classes, or couples classes. I'm partnering with the Wounded Warrior Project next week, and we're going to be teaching the 5 love languages to a group of 20 different warrior families. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. You're deployed overseas and you're married and you come back and have to learn this person again. And then your children are, adults are one thing, but children, they've changed so much.
So much. And it gives me the chills just thinking about how even much the military has changed with the inclusion of families and realizing how important the family structure is on that service member. Because I know my 2 deployments, 2004 and 2008, even though that's only 4 years apart, they were stark differences. Because if you remember in 2004 was kind of when the war was first starting. We had just started in 2003, the year before. And so we were really doing things, flying by the seat of the pants, just seeing it from the little, private hider that I was, my maiden name. And we did things a lot different. We didn't include families when we reintegrated from our deployments, on our even if we did reintegration classes, where in 2008, that deployment, when you got back from country at our home base, we couldn't go on leave for 2 weeks. So even though you're back in country, you can't do anything for 2 weeks. And they were including your family members to come to these classes on anger management and stress management and how to reconnect. And what's interesting about that, though, I found is that it works differently for each couple. Every family is different. So some families, I even heard a radio interview on NPR one time where it was a family that their method was, even while the service member was deployed, the spouse would talk to him about everything, about problems with the refrigerator or, the kids threw up today at school or whatever. But some families are like, I don't want to burden my service member with that because they're so busy on their deployment. But then they kind of lost touch. Yes, because they didn't know about. So then when they do come back, they're being bombarded with all this stuff that happened. So it's different. It was interesting to see the evolution of how families interact during deployments or even when they get back.
Well, do you have any statistics about veterans and mental health? You know, the media sometimes tries to portray it like all veterans are crazy, all of them have PTSD. When they get back, they're worthless. They shouldn't have guns, and you can't hire them because they can't do the job. And I found the veterans that I've hired have been super guys and gals.
That's awesome. Yes, a healthy veteran is America's greatest asset because we have that kind of training where we are disciplined, and it's in especially Army. I think it's like this for the other branches, but it's part of our core values to have integrity, to do the right thing when no one's watching. And I think that's very important. I like that you said, sometimes there's a perception that every veteran has PTSD, and even every veteran who was in combat, if you saw something crazy, then you have PTSD. And I am here to tell you, I was in a blast in one of my convoys. We had an incoming mortar, and for some reason, I feel like I might have a resilient brain, so I'm not really affected by it. Do I think about it? Yes. But do I meet the diagnostic criteria for it to become a disorder like PTSD? No, and not every veteran will say that. But to that fact, there may be some people in the convoy that I was riding with that may have been affected. And so that's what's so unique, is that it's different for everyone. But I do have some statistics here. So the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have been the longest sustained military operations since the Vietnam era, sending more than 2.2 million troops into battle. And this statistics is from the American Public Health Association. And there was more than 6,000 deaths and 48,000 injuries in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And veterans are twice as likely as Americans to become chronically homeless. Conversely, while veterans represent 1 in 10 adult civilians, they account for 1 in 4 homeless people. That's very interesting. And nearly 50% of combat veterans from Iraq report that they have suffered from PTSD. And close to 40% of these same veterans report problem alcohol use. Mm-hmm. So that's really where we tie into that mental health, not only with the PTSD, but how it leads into these life factors that could really affect you in a negative way. And not only you, not only your family, but society as a whole. We're overpopulating our jails with people who maybe don't need to be in jail, but they need to be helped. They need to be in treatment. But then you have all those barriers affecting that too.
Yeah.
And I have some more too about from 2008 and 2012, the Army and Marine Corps discharged 20,000 men and women with other than honorable status. And that's very important to note, mainly because if any of those 20,000 men and women have a diagnosable mental health issue, they may not be able to be seen by the VA. And so people who are experts in that field to serve veterans, especially if their PTSD is related to their service, may not either know that they're eligible to receive treatment, or they may not be eligible depending on their discharge status. So it's really difficult, because releasing, that's 20,000 people back into society who may need to get help, and they're not.
Yeah. Okay. We hear, about veterans committing suicide, and so I don't know if it's a high rate or if it's just reported more than other things are. But do you have any statistics on veteran suicide? And
I know there's the big one that's going around right now, the 22 veterans a day who are committing suicide. There's a lot of I wouldn't say a lot, but I have heard some differing factors from that study. That study is from a study that was conducted in 2010 from the VA, but they chose, I think, a handful of states and kind of narrowed it down. But none of those states included California, Texas, or Florida, which are where the highest population of veterans are. It's California first, Texas second, and then Florida. But when you really look at that study and the factors, what it comes down to is veterans are more likely to commit suicide than the regular population. And so that's where it gets really scary. And a lot of questions need to be asked, like, why? Why is the veteran population different? Especially for females, they see that I've read some things where female veterans compared to non-veteran females are more likely to commit suicide with a gun, where versus in the regular population, it's not as common for females to use guns. And that could maybe be attributed to how in the military we're trained to use guns, so we're more comfortable with them. You know, in the general population, women may not be so comfortable with using guns. I don't see...
So what's being done to combat the suicide rate?
Yes, a lot. There are a lot of local nonprofits that are doing... if you do a search for anything 22 and veterans, there's a bunch of things being done, like walks, awareness walks, just to bring awareness. And there's also on the provider side of the house, there's a lot of resources. The VA is a great resource to really get out and talk to someone. There's a great crisis line that's part of the National Suicide Hotline, but if you press 1, then it goes to a veteran call center. And there's actually a really good documentary on it called Crisis Hotline Veterans Press 1. And it shows the reality of not only the awesome people who are in that field of taking care of them, but also how it's so specific to veterans, because veterans may be thinking that they get out of the service of doing some awesome stuff, and then they come out and then they're anonymous. They may feel like, you know, how do you go from being trained to kill someone and possibly actually committing that act of killing someone and then coming back and working a desk job? You know, so there's a lot of feelings of hopelessness that sometimes comes and leads to that thoughts of suicide. But what we really tried to push is the crisis line, calling that crisis line, reaching out, talking to a battle buddy, talking to a peer support. That's really what's done. And when we talk about really why my program was created, it's to combat that suicide. You know, we don't want people losing their own lives for something that is treatable. Something that we always push is an app. There's an app for Texas veterans. And on that app, it has a direct link to that crisis line. And not only can you call it, but you can text this crisis line. You can go online and email chat on this crisis line. So it's really just about letting people know not only about that stigma, to fight that stigma, that it's okay for your human self to feel a certain way, but it's okay to ask for help. And it's actually preferred to ask for help. And not only for the veteran to not ask for help, but also we like to train other people who may be healthy to recognize signs of suicide. So that way we can step in if we need to.
Yes, and there's a lot of non-communication between the people that need it and the people that have services.
Yes.
And that's how do we cross that void?
Right.
It's just one of the programs or the purpose for your program.
It's an everyday challenge. Even just back to regular mental health, it's difficult for people to ask for assistance and not only to say that they have a problem. People can admit they have a problem, but maybe they don't want help. Yeah. You know, and unfortunately, something that I find myself saying way too often is that it's not illegal to be depressed. You know, it's not. Once it crosses a line, if there's a crisis situation or if they start committing crimes, then people can step in. But if you're just really sad, we can talk to you and try to encourage you up out of it. But, you know, it really has to be on the person to stand up and be like, okay, I want to do something about this.
Okay. You mentioned PTSD a while ago. What are the treatment options for PTSD?
There are a couple different treatment options, and the beauty of these treatment options is that it's so individual and based on what the needs are of each individual, because just like PTSD, it's different for everyone. So everyone's treatment is going to be different. But there are some specific treatments that are out there. There's one called prolonged exposure therapy that I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I know it has something to do with the namesake, where you have to keep talking about it, about the trauma with a person who's certified in this therapy. and you really stay on focus on that, and you talk about it, and you talk through why you feel that way, and what you can do when you start feeling that way to not feel that way.
It burns off that emotional aspect over time.
Yes, it makes, I like to think that it makes it so it's not trapped in your head. You're able to talk about it, and to talk about it in an appropriate situation, because it's common for some veterans to talk about stuff in an inappropriate place, around children or around families, and just start blurting out stuff, and that sometimes it'll just come out, and it's like we need to work on that. There's another some therapies called CBT and CPT, cognitive behavior therapy and cognitive processing therapy, and I'm not exactly sure on what the difference is on the two of them, but they are similar, where you're sitting down and talking with someone, a certified counselor or psychologist, about how your brain is working and how to process through those thoughts. And I think with the behavioral one, it's processing through your behavior and how your thought process relates to your behavior, where if you're thinking a certain way, that's why you're acting a certain way. And then there's another one called EMDR that stands for something about rapid eye movement desensitization, something. I think that's how you say that word. But it's that one is a really cool one that it same kind of thing, whereas you're talking about your issues or your traumas that you've experienced, the doctor puts their hand in front of your face and kind of moves it back and forth, and your eye follows it. And so it almost like, this is a really loose term, but it almost like erases the negativity thoughts from your brain. And it's a really interesting thing. And I don't want to say it's controversial, but it could be viewed as kind of hocus pocusy, because it doesn't work on everyone. It's
well, nothing does. So.
It's kind of like hypnosis, how hypnosis doesn't work on everyone, and this EMDR therapy doesn't work on everyone. But something that we all also push on the mentor level is self-care. Doing self-care, getting involved, volunteering in the community, partnering with organizations that, like the Red Cross or the Salvation Army, or there's some veteran volunteering organizations like the Mission Continues or Team Red, White, and Blue or Team Rubicon, that really gets you out and gets people motivated to kind of realize that, oh, wow, when I exercise, those darn endorphins are making me feel better. Holy cow, why am I happy all of a sudden? We really encourage that self-care, even things like meditation, or guided meditations or yoga, or really anything that makes
there's something for everybody if they will just step forward.
Do it. Yeah. Yes. And it's interesting because sometimes when I give those peer mentor trainings, and it's a group of manly men, and they're older, sometimes, Vietnam area, and I'm like talking about self-care, and they're like, what's that? I'm like, well, if you I don't want to definitely advocate for over drinking, but if you enjoy sitting on your porch drinking a beer and in moderation, and that's your thing, that's self-care, because you're taking the time to do something that relaxes you, and instead of just doing nothing and being sedentary and angry. I think I truly believe that we all generally want to be happy, but it's on us to make ourselves that way.
Okay. There's one last question I'd like to ask. For employers who are looking to hire veterans instead of waiting for them to walk in the door, what resources are available to find qualified applicants for a business or government job?
There are a bunch of organizations, and I'm going to throw out a couple of them that they have employment advisors, and one of them is the Texas Veterans Commission. They're at most Workforce Solutions offices, which are part of the Workforce Centers of America or Work in Texas, have a Texas Veterans Commission representative where a veteran can walk in, and if they have barriers to employment, then they can be seen and be helped. And employers are networked with those representatives so that those advisors know who's hiring in the local area, and especially who's hiring veterans, who wants veterans, and also there's organizations like the Goodwill and their Job Connection Center and Career and Recovery Resources, that same thing, that these organizations not only recruit veterans who need employment, but they network with these employers who are hiring in the area. Also, there's this great organization called Next Op, and they are a group of veterans themselves who started this organization, and they work specifically with employers in the oil and gas industry to connect veterans to oil and gas. And that's only here in the Houston area. It might be expanding. It might have expanded already. But that's an awesome resource because we all know that that's what this area is often all about. People want to get into that oil and gas industry. And also, the other route would be if a veteran knows kind of what realm they want to go into, especially with the bigger organizations, then reach out to those organizations and see if they have a special veteran recruiting area, because a lot of them do. I know Exxon does, Anadarko does, Chevron Phillips does. They all those bigger ones, they have actual veterans kind of councils within them that specialize in recruiting veterans.
Okay. How can anyone contact you who needs more information about the peer network?
They can either Google me on Google. They can Google Veteran Services in Montgomery County, and I'm next under the Montgomery County Veteran Service Officer. Or they can email me at ashleyt@tcbhc.org, or they can go on our website, which is www.milvetpeer.net.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ashley, for being here, and want everybody to remember our veterans on Veterans Day. It's quite a sacrifice that they and their families make to keep us safe, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
And this concludes our edition of the Willis Hour for November 5th. Happy Thanksgiving.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Hi, this is BJ Orner from Montgomery County Performing Arts Society. I'm here to remind you to get your tickets now for all the upcoming events that McPass has to offer. All shows will be held at the beautiful Crichton Theater in downtown Conroe. Call 936-441-7469 for your tickets today, or go to our website, www.mcpass.org, for more information. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Cindy Cochran, and now Conroe can boast of another first. The first morning live talk show, 10 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, right here on Lone Star Internet Radio, coming straight out of the fabulous downtown Conroe, Texas. Be the coolest guy at the water cooler, or the most informed break room dweller by listening to the fun side of the news, local, national, infinity, and beyond. The Cindy Cochran Show. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Heaven's Army of Resources and Recreation Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization featuring a 10,000 square foot building located at 19325 FM 1485 West, New Caney, Texas. At Heaven's Army, we offer over 26 different services free for all ages, from karate, dance, drug and alcohol classes, anger management, parenting, food and clothing pantries, to just name a few. We are supported solely by volunteers and private donations. Our main mission is to glorify God in all that we do. At Heaven's Army, we strive to be a hand up, not a handout. Come check us out at 19325 FM 1485 West, New Caney, Texas, or call for more information at 281-689-5864. You may also learn more about Heaven's Army by visiting our website at heavensarmyofresources.com.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Good afternoon, and thanks for listening here to Lone Star Internet Radio. My name is Lauren Swanke, and it's so good to be here with you today on the Willis Hour. It's always exciting to join with Lone Star Internet Radio and the City of Willis to bring to you, I should say, the Willis Hour. And I'm real excited today because we have a special guest with us, and that is Mr. Mike Sasser. I'm so glad you're here today, Mike.
Hey, thank you, Lauren. It's nice to be here this afternoon.
And Mike has written a book recently, and it's Simple, Inexpensive, and Painless Weight Loss. And there on the cover it says, "I did it and you can do it, my personal weight loss story." And it is Mike's personal story. And so I'm excited to have him here today. You know, there's a lot of good things going on in Montgomery County and a lot of good people that are active doing exciting things. And so I just wanted to be sure to get him in here and for him to share with you about his book and his story. And so glad you're here today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Lauren. It's great to be here and great to talk about the book, and especially with the holidays coming up. I think this is something that might be on a lot of people's mind.
It is.
Weight loss or weight maintenance at this point in time.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I mean, as we look at the holidays, it's kind of like, we're just gonna fill up during the holidays, and there's really kind of no limit on portions and all of that. It's just a free for all. At least it has been for me always, like a little bit of every dessert, and kind of just wild and out there. So I think this is a great message for us to be talking about today. And Mike is a Lake Conroe resident.
That's
and
correct.
Just a real neat guy. And so I'm excited to be able to have him here today. We have a story in the November issue of 1097 about Mike, and so I encourage you to pick that up and read a little bit more. But today, as you're listening in, Mike, if you will, tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of your history.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'll let you know that first, I'm from Louisiana. I am a transplant. So when it comes to food, and you're talking about portions and all of that I grew up with food. I mean, we were very blessed, but my mom cooked big meals,
right?
And so therefore, that's the good side of it. The bad side of it is I've struggled with my weight my entire life. And so I have, I like to say that I'm like a lot of people out there.
Sure.
I've done many of the diet plans. I've had the prescribed diet pills, the over-the-counter diet pills. I've joined the gyms out there only to go for about a month at a time, and then I just never was that gym person. I mean,
right.
If you are, that's great. That exercise equipment, I mean, again, we talk about the holidays coming up after Christmas, after New Year's, everybody rushes out and buys that expensive, workout equipment for their house. And then by February, we're hanging clothes on it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's me anyway. That's been my past, and a lot of people that I talk to as well. So I've been here in the Lake Conroe area for about 2 years now, and about a year and a half ago, I decided there just had to be a better way. So I began to research nutrition, and that is really where it all starts. A lot of people say, almost any exercise plan or any plan out there, you're always going to have the small print that says diet and exercise.
Right.
Okay. And so I spent about 4 months just researching nutrition labels, reading about nutrition. There's a lot of restaurants now with their nutritional information on their websites, so you can do that if you eat out a lot, which many people do nowadays. But there was just a couple of areas that I focused on because, I wanted to keep it simple. And the book is Simple, Inexpensive, and Painless Weight Loss. And I'm not suggesting that weight loss is that simple, but the processes I found were simple.
Yeah.
So I focused on, first off, sugar in our diets. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in many foods that we eat. We're eating 4 or 5 times the amount of sugar that we need on a daily basis. And the thing about sugar is our body's, all it knows to do once it gets the amount that it needs is to store it. Okay, so just to say it, the sugar in our foods is making us fat.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
There's a huge obesity problem in America. Almost 1/3 of Americans are considered obese. So it's a big issue. The second nutrition component in our food is salt or sodium. Again, we're eating 4 or 5 times the amount of sodium a day that we need. And you might think, well, what does that really have to do with weight? Well, it's the retention, and then there's a lot of health issues that is associated with sodium intake. So I wanted to address that as well. And just to touch a little bit on it is when you begin to read the nutrition labels, a lot of people look at them as maybe misleading, and if you don't pay attention to it, it can be. I like to use the can of soup for an example. On the front, they're going to have 110 calories, 400 milligrams of sodium. Usually you don't find that much sugar in soup. But anyway, they put the good part on the front of the can. Now, if you turn it around to the nutrition side, that can of soup is going to have 2.5 servings. Now, most everybody that I know, at least I do, when I open a can of soup, I'm going to eat the whole thing.
Right, sure.
So now you have to take that and multiply it. So now you're almost getting the daily amount of sodium in that one can of soup. If you don't eat anything else that day, you've had your sodium intake.
Right.
And so I refer to that as nutrition math, and just kind of coin that phrase. And if you begin to watch those things right there, another great example is a lot of people like yogurt, and they think they're doing great or good eating yogurt, unless you look at the fruit flavored. Now you're going to find a lot of sugar in that. So when you begin to look at that closely, that one little thing of yogurt that you may have in the morning, you may have already taken in the entire amount of sugar that you need for that day.
Right.
So if you add a couple of sodas or cold drinks on top of that, cheesecake, that evening, you've overwhelmed your your body with the sugar that you need.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed, I whenever you sent your book to me and I was able to read through it, I really felt like it makes sense and it just is easy to understand. And sometimes I think weight loss, and we were talking about a little while ago just how some people don't want to step on the scale every day,
Right.
But I think part of that is that there's a mystery to it. What is the deal? Why are the numbers continuing to go up?
Yeah.
And I think there are some basic truths that you share about that make it, I think, palatable and understandable for the everyday person that's just wants to know, what can I do to shed this unwanted weight? So I appreciate that about it for sure.
Yeah, Lauren. I mean, that's that's exactly. Again, I am a everyday person. Not to take anything away from all these things that you see on TV, but
right.
I'm not that person. I am a everyday person. So I had to write it simple, and basically you get into the book and talking about stepping on the scales. I know a lot of people don't like to do that, and there's even some talk that that you shouldn't do that. But the way I look at it is you want to know, if you go out and eat a big meal the night before, you step on the scales the next morning, you're going to kind of associate those consequences. And when you begin to do that, then you start paying attention, because we blindly eat. And we don't, especially going into the holidays, we don't pay that much attention to what we're eating. And then, next thing you know, you step on the scales. Well, it's not 1 or 2 pounds. It's 5 pounds, 7 pounds, 10 pounds. You're like, where did this come from?
Right.
And I used to look back, and I would have no idea what I ate the first part of the week.
Yeah.
That brought on this weight.
For sure.
So I like to really keep tabs on it, keep a close eye on it, and that comes from my background. I used to look at a lot of reports coming in. I managed health and safety in the oil and gas industry, and that's the way I was able to help people in the field with things that they needed and stuff. So I call that chapter the mirror, because you're literally you're looking in the mirror. Your scale kind of becomes your mirror, and it's only going to tell you what's true. And as long as you're honest with yourself, then that's what you're going to see.
That's good. Well, we are so glad that you're listening in today here on the Willis Hour, and we'll be back in just a moment with Mike Sasser and to continue our conversation about his book, Simple, Inexpensive, and Painless Weight Loss. We are talking about Willis here in just a little bit, too. We're going to catch you up on some events that are happening soon in the coming days and even months in Willis. And so stay with us here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Our community's animal shelters cannot absorb accidental litters of kittens and puppies. Approximately 80% of the animals entering our shelters will not make it out alive. Please help be a part of the solution. Please spay and neuter your pets. Many low-cost options are available. Visit texaslittercontrol.org to learn more. That's texaslittercontrol.org. And remember, real Texans don't litter. Please spay and neuter your pets.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
This is Holly Price, Events Manager with Children's Cancer Recovery Foundation. The foundation assists children under age 18 and their families who are facing the hardships of a cancer diagnosis. Our mission focuses on improving the mental, social, and emotional well-being of these families while helping to minimize the devastation that cancer can cause. Located in the Woodlands, Texas, we support families who often face financial difficulties through our Helping Hands Fund. The Helping Hands Fund provides emergency bridge payments directly to the utility companies and landlords, ensuring that each child has a warm, safe place to call home while recovering from cancer. For more information, you can contact us directly at 713-389-5544. You can also check out our upcoming events or make a donation by visiting our website at www.childrenscancerrecovery.org.
You're listening to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio.
Welcome back here to the Willis Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio. I'm so glad that you're tuning in here. We're talking today with Mike Sasser, the author of Simple, Inexpensive, and Painless Weight Loss. And before we jump back in, I do want to make note, we're talking about healthy eating or making better choices in our eating. And one of the things that I think is an exciting event that happens once a month in Willis that might give you an opportunity to alter your eating is the Montgomery County Market Days. And it's a farmer's market in Willis, and it's tomorrow. So I encourage you to be sure to get out there and enjoy that. It starts tomorrow afternoon, and I believe they're there until 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's an event that you can swing by there on your way home from work, or if you can step away at any time in the afternoon, you can swing by there and enjoy some of the great things that they have available. It's there next door to Montgomery County Milling, right around the City Hall in Willis, and it's a great opportunity to maybe meet your neighbors, meet some of the folks in the community, and pick up maybe some fruits and veggies, or maybe I know there was a lady there that sells goat's milk soap and just a little bit of everything that you can imagine, but I did want to be sure to mention that here today to go out and check that out tomorrow in Willis. It's Montgomery County Market Days. Jumping back in with Mike Sasser, we're talking about simple, inexpensive, and painless weight loss. And a few moments ago, we were discussing food choices and reading those labels. And so if you will, talk about the tracker.
Okay, yeah. It's I call it the Food and Activity Tracker, and I picked 60 days because of several studies I read. You may have heard that it takes 21 days to create habits and that thing. Right. So I looked into that, researched some, and there was actually a study out there that said, I believe it was 66 days to really become almost automatic, if you will, in creating habits. So I just rounded back down to 60 days, and basically for 60 days I tracked everything that I ate, and that's what I ask you to do as well, is track everything that you eat, everything that you drink, and then also the activities. And let me just touch on that just a little bit. Sure. Again, back in the days I played football in high school and did all the weightlifting and all that type of stuff. But once I got away from all of that, I really was not a exercise person. I mean, I didn't like going to the gym. I didn't like the thought of exercise. Mm-hmm. So what I did there was I applied a little different, word to it, and I said, okay, let's think about it as activities. Mm-hmm. Now, what do I like to do? Well, I like to walk in the park. I like to, I live here on the lake. I like water activities and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, exercise is activities that basically is burning energy, burning calories. Yeah. So that's how I kind of got past that, okay, well, I've got to go exercise. Mm-hmm. Well, now I think, well, it's a nice afternoon. Let's go walk in the park. Mm-hmm. And that's literally all that I did for the most part, was just walk in the park.
Yeah.
Again, not lifting a lot of weights, and if that's your thing, that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
right. Do that.
Go for
Don't
it.
stop.
Yes.
Just, do it. So basically, and one other thing about the tracker, and you have to be honest with yourself. I am a little bit social, and so I actually have a place on the tracker where I tracked, adult beverages, alcoholic beverages. If you don't drink, again, that's okay. That wouldn't apply to you. But if you really want to be honest with yourself, because you think, well, I'm eating right, I'm doing my activities, I'm doing all, but every Friday you go and have those 2 or 3 margaritas. Well, guess what? 400 calories or so per margarita. It may be what you're drinking that is not allowing you to lose the weight versus what you're eating. So again, the tracker kind of just takes all of that into consideration, and it puts it out there to where you can see it. And the thing is you're associating those consequences, because by the way, I don't. There's a non-restrictive diet. I don't even like to call it a diet. And it's not so much a meal plan. I have everything that I did for 60 days to give you an example, kind of a lead, if you will. But you begin to work with different foods, and like you said, the market, great place to get some local fruits, vegetables, there's, and you just kind of incorporate that into your diet.
Right.
But as you begin to write this down, you begin to basically build a blueprint.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, and that way you find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And so after that 60 days, and you may want to continue on, but I strongly recommend do the 60 days, because again, a year and a half ago was when I did this, and I mean now to today, it's just habit. It's just automatic for me to eat now the way I did then, and that's the way I've been able to maintain it.
That's good.
Now look, I mean, we talked about that. You don't reach that magic number, and then all of a sudden you never gain another pound.
Right.
So you have this blueprint. You can go back and you can find one of your successful weeks where you might have lost, 4 pounds, 5 pounds, 8 pounds, whatever it was. And it almost seems simple, but you just repeat that.
Right.
And you're going to be able to maintain, that weight and keep that unwanted weight off.
Right.
In the long run. And that's where I've always struggled. When my pills ran out, or I quit going to the gym, or I quit using the equipment that I went out and purchased, the weight always came back on.
Yeah.
This time I've been able to keep the weight off.
I think it's practical. I love things that you can just put in your back pocket, and it's there when you need it. And I think this is a tool that for our listeners today, and for me personally, I mean, we were talking a moment ago that in my own life and reading your book and in applying those principles, seeing some success, and that's really a fun thing, to see success and to see, wow, this is possible.
Right.
And it's a very practical, I think, unintimidating way to do that.
Yes.
And so for you guys that are listening today that may want to pick up a copy of Simple, Inexpensive, and Painless Weight Loss from Mike Sasser, who's a Lake Conroe resident right around the Willis area, you can go online to mikesasser.com. But if you're right here in the community and you just want to run out and pick up a copy right now, it's at Hastings in Conroe. So is there anything else that you want to add to, Mike?
I think we just about covered it. There is one more important thing, and it is that I've made a personal pledge. It's written in the book, and it's on the back of the book, that a certain portion of the proceeds that I receive, I'm going to donate to fight hunger, because I thought, there's so many of us struggling with weight, and at the same time, there's right at 48 million people that are practically going hungry here in the U.S. So I thought if I could help both groups of people,
right,
then that would be something I'd want to do. So that's a personal commitment, and like I said, is page 2 on the book is basically my pledge to make a difference.
That's awesome.
And so when you purchase the book, know that you're going to be helping somebody that's out there that's going hungry at the same time.
That's cool. One of the things we love in 1097 to be able to do, which is the community newspaper in Willis, we love to be able to encourage our readers to support local business, to get involved in the community, to make a difference. And I think in picking up Mike's book and listening in today to Lone Star Internet Radio, I think you'll be doing those things. You'll be supporting Mike in his endeavors and his writing by picking up his book and you'll be supporting yourself, I think, by applying some of the principles you read there. And so I just encourage you to do that. Again, you can visit him online at mikesasser.com or go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and pick up the book, or also to Hastings and Conroe.
Yep.
So, Mike, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a lot of fun. Now, listen, as we close out the program today, I do want to remind you the Willis Christmas Parade and Festival is coming up. It's going to be December 5th. So it's actually 1 month from today, if you can believe it, is the Willis Christmas Parade and Festival, and it's right there in the community, and it's a whole lot of fun. Maybe you're listening in and you are a part of a business or an organization, a church, maybe your kid's school. I encourage you to consider being a part of that parade. Consider maybe plugging into the festival in one way or another. And the way to do that, I encourage you to go online to Facebook, and you can just search Willis Christmas Parade or Willis Christmas Festival. Registration is linked there for both events, and more information is there as well. But it's a great opportunity to get to know folks in the community and to just participate in something that's great and celebrating Christmas with your neighbors right there in Willis. So thanks so much for listening here today to Lone Star Internet Radio. I'm Lauren Swanky, and I'm with 1097 Willis Monthly News. We're your community newspaper, and it's been a pleasure being with you here today, and we'll see you again next time.